I'm the current Director for Scotland with the British Red Cross and past chair of an amazing organisation called Voluntary Health Scotland. So Voluntary Health Scotland is the national intermediary organisation for health organisations, and it really focuses on health inequalities across our nation. Trustee was not anything I'd ever thought about getting involved in. I'm heavily involved in another organisation as a volunteer, so I didn't think I'd have the time. But when I sat down and had a coffee with the chief exec and I learned more about what the role involved, I could gain a lot of it, the organisation could gain a lot of it, that helped. But the cause was important to me. So I grew up in an area of multiple deprivation in Edinburgh. I lived and breathed and saw health inequalities in my community. And a big part of the work that Voluntary Health Scotland does is about tackling health inequalities. So I was able to bring some of my personal experiences around that board table, so that it's not just about the high level policy and decision making. Actually, we're bringing a bit of here's what poor planning within a locality can actually mean for people. So it was a wee bit about skill development for me, a wee bit about giving back to an organisation that I really valued, but it was also the cause had a lot of meaning to me as well. Being a trustee is a remarkable opportunity. Having that chance to hone in on your own skills, develop your skills. When I first became a trustee, I was under the age of 30, so it gave me a really good opportunity to develop some skills in strategic leadership, strategy development, communication. I guess the bit that really surprised me was when you're around that boardroom and just making sure that everyone's read the papers. Not everyone does, which was a big surprise. And that negotiation and diplomacy, there was a few times around our board table we had some discussions, and that's good for a board, but I didn't appreciate how much sometimes discussions would be heated. You potentially got 12 different people from all walks of life with different views, and certainly latterly as chair, trying to coordinate that and bring everyone together is quite some task sometimes. So I think that was my biggest surprise. The time commitment as well. Obviously you're doing this as a volunteer, and it's a great, volunteering is such a great thing. It helps your own mental health, it helps the community and so forth. So you're balancing that plus your day job, plus trustee role, and then life in general. So having things such as COVID pop up, having crises when your chief exec might have resigned or due to retire, etc. That adds pressure onto boards. So it really is important that if you're going for a trustee role, that actually you're going with your eyes fully opened. So when you're a trustee, you can spend half an hour before a meeting reading the papers, attend a meeting, give your views, and walk away. And that's it in a nutshell. There'll be people that disagree with that sentiment, but in reality, being a trustee is like that. You might have a few meetings throughout the year and follow-up meetings. I think if you hold the position of treasurer, which I was, and then chair, it brings a level of responsibility. Effectively, you have a duty of care to staff, the senior member of staff, chief exec or director. You have a level of risk that you are responsible for around the board table, so making sure all our governance is up to date. But you also have to make sure that you're taking a group of 12 people from diverse backgrounds with you, and that can be challenging. You could be arguing simple things that might seem simple, such as whether or not we do a cost of living increase, and you could have 12 different views, and somehow you need to step back and actually try and bring everyone's views to a conclusion, so that staff can potentially get a cost of living increase or not. So the biggest challenge for me was actually taking a wee bit of a step back when I was chair and not getting too involved in the discussions, so that you could be a bit independent. Did I always get that right? There were some topics I was a bit more passionate about than others, so I would give views, but I tried to let trustees have their say, and you were sort of there as their facilitator. So I would recommend being either a chair or a treasurer to people, because it's a great experience. You get to meet so many different people, and there is a peer network as well. There's chair networks across Scotland. I'm not going to name one or two because there's quite a few of them, but they are good opportunities to get that peer support, because it can be quite a lonely role sometimes, providing that support to and facilitation to trustees, but also to the executive team as well. It's a vital relationship. If you get it right, it's brilliant. If you don't, it can be messy. I think I've been really lucky as chair that I had a fantastic relationship with the chief executive. Claire Stevens from Voluntary Scotland and I got on exceptionally well. We didn't have the same skill sets, we didn't have the same personalities, and I think as the two senior people for the organisation, we complemented each other quite well and challenged each other as well, which I thought was really good. But the key to that success was open communication. I think you need to have an open relationship between the chair and CEO, and the other way around as well. I think that was a big part of our success. I have been a chief exec of a charity and had some great relationships with former chairs, and it was great. And again, it was that personal connection, being open and transparent, because these are, for CEOs, they're lonely roles, and if you've not got that backing of a chair, then it can make it very difficult. Being a trustee is great. Being a volunteer is such a useful experience. Not only do you develop skills and experiences, and you can fine-tune them and take them back to your workplace as well, but it's good for the wider community that you're living in. There's research out there that says volunteering is good for your mental health, so volunteering really is good for you as well. But having that diversity of people from a wide range of backgrounds can really enhance an organisation and challenge some of the more established thinking. I remember when I first went into Voluntary Scotland, I was under the age of 30, starting out my leadership journey as a career, and actually really nervous. Am I the right person to be in this role? As trustee, you feel grand, whereas actually it's about you giving your skills and experiences and thoughts. And when you're sitting around the table, you've got former chief execs, you've got former directors, and you're sitting there under the age of 30, head of whatever the organisation is. So I think it is a good learning opportunity, but there is a wee bit of, we need younger people and more diverse people in to broaden the experiences and thought process on the board. Time. I think time's a massive barrier for people. You're in your career, you're trying to push ahead, trying to be the best, but you have families, whether that's a dog or children or parents, and you're also trying to live your life as well as best as possible. So throw in a volunteering opportunity that has quite a bit of seniority to it can be quite tricky. I think people are also put off by trustee. We see some of the scandals that have taken place across the UK, and trustees have been rightly held accountable. I think that potentially could be a barrier, but it's important that when organisations are looking for trustees, that they're able to talk about the governance that is in place to protect the organisation and to protect individuals as well. So whilst being a trustee has a lot of serious responsibilities, it actually has some great opportunities for people as well. And for me, getting a lot out of that critical analysis of an organisation, getting into the deep and dirty of how an organisation runs, understanding finance from not an operational level but a strategic level, has been really helpful to me and helped me develop throughout my career. But also that ability to forward plan as well. When you're in senior roles, you spend a lot of time thinking about what are the big challenges that are coming up. But actually, it wasn't until I was a trustee that I had a new lens on that you could actually really look into the future and think about, okay, I'm not in the weeds, I'm actually looking and thinking, actually, what could this organisation be doing in 5, 10, 15 years' time? And you don't have the baggage of knowing what is challenging just now. So I think they're definitely the two things that have been really helpful for me. I would read papers properly, which I suspect there'll be many trustees who are potentially watching this having a wee giggle at themselves, like we just have, because it is the most challenging thing, but it seems such a simple thing as well. You skim over papers and you miss a bit of detail. And I remember my first board meeting, I think I'd skimmed through the papers and we were chatting about something, and I got completely caught out by not going into the detail of it by a very experienced person who knew a lot about pensions, and that moment taught me that actually you need to be all over the detail if you're going to be in those roles. So it was a valuable lesson, and one that I've seen actually over my 6 years. You can tell who's read the papers and who's not read the papers. And I think just, if I take my chair hat off and trustee hat off and put my other hat on when I was a CEO, it can actually be really demoralising if your trustees are not reading the papers that you put time and effort into. There is an argument, do trustees get too many papers? And I think that needs to be an open discussion. But if someone's spent the time to write something, you should really read it. So that's the biggest thing I'd change if I had my time again.